Hello and Assalamu alaikum, everyone. A very warm welcome to the SBL March 2024 Pre-seen Tutor Debrief, and I'm Kashif Kamran. Now, the exams are just a week away, and this is an ideal time that I should sit down with all of you and do the brainstorming of the pre-seen, which has been released by ACCA for the March 2024 exam. This pre-seen debrief will be divided into two parts, the part one today, followed by the part two tomorrow. And in the first part, I'll be focusing on the football sector. And in the part tomorrow, I will be focusing on the Athletic Trans-Central Club, which is the organization in the case scenario. Let's open the tutor debrief. Now, first of all, before I go to the debrief in the next 5 to 10 minutes, I would like to spend time on common issues with pre-seen. This is the third time the exams will be held under the pre-seen scenario since it started from September 2023. And this is something new, and students appearing for the March 2024 exam should have a very good idea about how they are utilizing the pre-seen at home and how they're using the pre-seen during the exam, because there are a lot of myths and misunderstandings which exist among students, and I just need to clear that off before I start my tutor debrief. Let's see some common issues from the examiner report, which I don't like you all repeating in your upcoming exams. First of all, when we look at the pre-seen information and common student issues, the first one is the pre-seen is designed specifically to allow candidates to establish a sound understanding of the forthcoming examination industry and the company context. Why is ACCA publishing this debrief information, which on average is on 12 pages? We know the time management for SBL has come down from 4 hours to 3 hours and 15 minutes. They have released a bigger chunk of information to you ahead of your exams because they want you to establish a sound understanding of the industry, which will come in the forthcoming exam, and of the company. Now, you know, this time the industry is football club, the football sector, and the company is the AT, which is known as the Athletic Trans-Central Club. So we will be developing that sound understanding today and tomorrow. Today is about industry, tomorrow is about the company. Number two, this should help to provide a relevant setting for candidates when analyzing and understanding the exhibit information that is presented to them on the day of exam. Now, this is very important. Listen very carefully. What you all need to understand is that on the day of exam, you will get exhibits, right? And more or less, we have 4 exhibits on the day of exams, which are given to you. The answer to the task given to you on the day of exam will come from the information presented in the exhibit on the day of exam. If you believe my answer will come from the pre-seen, or my majority of the answer will come from the pre-seen, that is wrong. Pre-seen is there to provide the context. Pre-seen is there to bring the familiarity. Pre-seen is there to help you understand the terminologies and save your time in the exam paper. Now, when you read these 12 pages of pre-seen today and tomorrow, you will absorb about industry, you will absorb about company, you will know so many facts about industry and company, which will come on your fingertips. I just read it for 24 hours and I can remember so much even without referring to the pre-seen material. I can just recall 50 to 60% of the pre-seen spontaneously. So when you absorb the pre-seen and you enter the exam hall, it is not the 100% answer. It is providing context to your answer. The real answer will come from the exhibits which are given to you on the day of exam. I'll just show you that criticism of the examiner, that the examiner was very critical of student forcefully copy pasting pre-seen information in their answer without no development. If you're just forcefully copy pasting pre-seen just to impress your marker, you are not at all impressing your marker. The information in your answer should be from the specific exhibit which is given to you on the day of exam, and you should blend your answer with that information. Pre-seen can give you some examples, can give you some context, and you can spontaneously refer to pre-seen in any of your answer where you can recall something from pre-seen, and that will be an added advantage. But please remember, pre-seen is itself is not the answer. Pre-seen, if you spot questions, you spot topics from pre-seen, that's the wrong strategy you are undertaking. I hope you're all clear on that, right? Just let me progress on that point more. However, candidates must fully appreciate that the pre-seen information should not be used to question spot, as the task set in the exam do not use information detailed in the pre-seen. So if you just ask your tutor that what questions can come, what is the examining team telling you in the bullet number 3? That the questions will not be set from the pre-seen information. The questions will be set from the exhibits given to you on the day of exam. So if you think, okay, I'm reading a paragraph of pre-seen, and you say, oh, what likely question can develop from this paragraph? No, you cannot spot the questions because the examining team is saying that the questions have no relevance to pre-seen. The questions have relevance to the exhibits you're reading on the day of exam. So what pre-seen is doing then? It's just making us familiar with the industry and the company. So on the day of exam, when we are reading exhibits, we know what AT is. We know what Skyline is. We know what Skyline Football League is. We know about the football teams. We know about the stadiums. We know about the financial performance, because we must have absorbed that. So a lot of terminologies, a lot of jargons of the football industry must be on your fingertips. The question on exam day will be focused primarily on the information contained within the 4 examination exhibits. So where will the task be formulated, all of you? From within the 4 exhibits given to you on the day of exam, not from the pre-seen, right? And this is what candidates will be expected to focus on as a primary source of developing answer. Is everyone clear with the bullet number 4? As the primary source for developing answer. What is the primary source for developing answer? Pre-seen or the exhibits given on the day of exam? Quickly. What is the primary source for developing answer? Exhibits given on the day of exam, right? Not pre-seen. What is pre-seen doing then? What is pre-seen doing to you? Tell me, what is pre-seen doing to you? Pre-seen is just providing a context. It's just providing you a background. You can relate something spontaneously from that pre-seen where needed, but can you forcefully apply pre-seen to every answer? Tell me, can you apply forcefully pre-seen to every answer? No. So are you clear with the 4 bullets? These are not my bullets, right? These are from examiner reports. So you need to do what your marker or examining team is asking you. So 4 exhibits, and the answer has to come out of that 4 exhibits. Okay, moving on. Of course, some information within the pre-seen will be useful. So yes, some information within the pre-seen will be useful. You can remember that. So you will be revising pre-seen from today onwards. You will be spending like 45 minutes, an hour every day to revise pre-seen, and it will keep absorbing in your mind. So Tuesday, when you're sitting in the exam hall, you can spontaneously recall some information you read in the pre-seen, and you can make a very good connection of that within your answer. But it's not the forceful application, right? It's where needed, where helpful. You can bring something from pre-seen, and you can just relate and develop your point well. So it can help you support some points made in the answer, but candidates must avoid the temptation to copy paste sections of pre-seen into their answer. Look at this. Temptation to copy paste pre-seen in their answer when it's not needed. It's just about bringing something from pre-seen spontaneously to support your answer where needed. And that is spontaneous. That is spontaneous, right? Some student can do it, some student might not do it. But again, the answer majorly lies in the 4 exhibits given to you on the day of exam. The pre-seen information is designed to assist candidates overall understanding of the industry and the company. This NC text should be removed from here because this was from the previous examiner report when we had the case study around NC Tech, but it will not itself provide a full source of examination answer. Look at this last line, but it will not provide itself a full source of examination answer. So will pre-seen provide you a full source of examination answer itself, all of you? No. So where will the answer come from? The exhibits. So please ensure this has been taken from the December 23 examiner report when the case study was around NC Tech. And the examining team is criticizing students, helping students appearing for March 24 exams to better know what are issues underlying pre-seen. So are you all clear with how to go about utilizing pre-seens? Are we spotting questions? Are we spotting which question can come on Tuesday? No, we're just building our familiarity with the terms, jargons, and everything in the case study so we can provide a better context on the day of exam. So the more we know the case study, the better context we can provide on the day of exam. Okay, the last thing, use of pre-seen in real exams, stronger versus weaker student. You have exams on Tuesday. The better candidates use the details in the pre-seen to provide appropriate context for their answers. So the students use the pre-seen just to provide a context for their answers where needed. With the weaker students making concentrated efforts to force any pre-seen detail, no matter how inappropriate it was in their answer. Now imagine you have exams on Tuesday. Which part of the students you would like to fall on? Just using pre-seen to provide a context, or just using the pre-seen forcefully and apply pre-seen to the answer when it's inappropriate? I hope you will all like to fall on part of the better candidates for March 24, not on side of the weaker candidates. So is everyone clear with the examining team perspective on pre-seen? Now, for the next 7 days, I hope you all know how to use pre-seen. Are you using pre-scenes to identify which articles to read? Are you reading the pre-seen to identify which questions to solve? Or are you just reading the pre-seen to absorb the main information of the pre-seen? Because the better you know the pre-seen on the day of exam, you can use it as a context of your answer, true or false. The better you know the pre-seen on the day of exam, you can provide a relevant context to your answer. Right? That's what you need. So just let me start the pre-seen session now, and let's see how much pre-seen we can absorb and how much pre-seen we can bring on fingertip in the next 60 minutes. And I'm doing the part 1 today, which is about the industry, and we'll do the company part tomorrow. And the industry part is a major one, right? Of the 12 pages published by the examining team. Okay, let's start with the part 1 debrief. And the part 1 debrief is about industry, and it's about the Skyline land football sector. So we'll explore the Thailand as a country and the football sector within Thailand, and we'll see what sort of things examining team has presented to us in that first 8 pages. Total 12 pages are there, but the first 8 pages is about the Thailand football sector. Okay, so information about the football sector in Thailand, and that's what we are focusing on in the first part of the debrief today. I hope you can see the pre-seen on your screen. I'll not be reading the pre-seen. The session is not about reading the pre-seen because that's something you can do on your own. It's not about reading word by word the pre-seen. That will make this session a real boring session, right? That if you expect that I'll read every part of the pre-seen with you. But I'm covering today which part of the pre-seen? I'm covering today the part of pre-seen which relates with introduction and football sector information for Land. That's the part of things I am covering today. So that's from page number 2 up to page number 7. And then tomorrow, I will be covering information from the Athletic Trans-Central Overview. That's from the page number 7 downwards. So I'll be covering the football sector today in Land, and I'll be covering the AT as a company tomorrow. I hope you're all clear on that. Okay, so when I was reading the pre-seen before the start of the session, see how much I have done through. I hope you can see my annotations on the pre-seen on the left and on the right. See, when I was reading through, I was picking some important information. You can see the yellow highlighting. I read the page 2 and 3, then I read the page 4 and 5. Then I read the page number 5 and 6, a lot of highlighting here. And that finishes off things. The section 3 is what we will be doing tomorrow, right? So we'll be doing up to the end of the section 2 today. Now, when I read it, this is what I got at the end of the day, and this is what I will be sharing with all of you. This is my tutor debrief. I'm not reading the debrief. I'm telling you this is my summary. Can you see my summary on in front of your screen on a Word file? Please confirm, because I need to go through this summary with you and then share this document with all of you. Okay. Now, how many pages am I covering today? I'm covering the pages from 1 to 8. 1 to 8. I read all the 8 pages in the last 24 hours, and I developed my own notes. And how many pages I have? Just 3 pages. 8 pages of information has been summarized into 3 pages, because that is what provides me context on the day of exam to support my answers with pre-seen where needed. Now, you can take a printout of these 3 pages. You can revise these 3 pages every day for 1 hour, and you will start absorbing this. And when you go into the exam hall on Tuesday, you will remember each and every aspect of it. So just 3 pages being extracted out of 8. So my purpose is not to read the pre-seen. My purpose is to share with you my executive summary. So this is my executive summary of the first 8 pages. Let's go down, and no Q&As. I'll give you last 15 minutes for Q&A. Just listen to me, but if I ask you a question, please do reply to that. Okay, now no questions from your side for the next 45 minutes. Okay, first of all, in the introductory part of this pre-seen, the examining team tells us that this pre-seen is divided into part 1, which is about the football sector in Land, and the part 2 is divided into Athletic Trans-Central Football Club. So I'm making use of the part 1 today. Vokia is the continent, and Land is a country within that continent. So see, when we are sitting in the exam hall on Tuesday, what context mean? We can refer to Land in our answer. So we know the context. We can refer to Vokia as a continent in the answer when needed. So that is the context. You know the terminologies. Athletic Trans-Central Football Club and Athletic Trans-Central Company in the exam paper will be referred as AT, as a single company. I hope you read that well. So in your actual exam on Tuesday, when you're reading the exhibits, in the exhibits, they will only use the term AT. So be very sure of using AT. Can you use AT in your answers? Yes. So you will not use Athletic Trans-Central Football Club every time you're writing the answer. You will just be using AT, and examining team know what AT is because they have cut short this long term to AT for exam papers. So AT is the company, AT is the club, and Land is the country where we need to develop, where we need to think about this football sector. AT has been successful in the past, winning number of trophies, but has increasingly struggled to compete with other leading clubs in Land. So they're recently struggling. They had been good, but recently they are struggling. Just keep that information in mind. It might help you provide some context on the day of exam. So is AT struggling in recent years? Yes or no? Is AT struggling in recent years? Yes. Will that be remembered by all of you? It can provide some context on the day of exam. Okay. Thought process. Now, wherever there is a thought process, I'll put that in red. I hope you can see the thought process TP1. So thought process will be referred as TP, and TP1. Need to investigate the cause or need to investigate the reasons for struggling. So examiner might ask you, what are underlying reasons why AT is struggling recently, or develop a report to the board of directors identifying reasons or cause of the recent struggling by AT. So something like that. So we all know that this organization is struggling recently. And my thought process is to investigate the underlying reasons of the struggling element. We might get to know that on the day 2 tomorrow, and we might get some information on the struggling element from the remaining pages we will be reading tomorrow. But are you clear with the thinking process, the thought process number 1 in red? Everyone? Okay, now moving on. The second thing we have in this pre-seen is about the football sector of Kyle Land. Now, that's the most important information. The examining team is telling us about the football sector in this country, which is the Kyle Land country. They tell us that football is played by men, by women, and by children under the age of 18 years. So in all, it's about diversified among men, women, and children. Football clubs operates at a professional and at a recreational level. At a professional levels, the players are full-time employees of the football club. So they get salaries from the football clubs, and very lucrative salary. You must have read that salary is one of the major expenses just to keep the football players happy. So the football clubs have players as their employees, and they get salary from their respective clubs. Professional clubs. So how professional clubs operate? Because we're not concerned with football at a recreational level in this paper. We are more concerned with football at a professional level in this paper. So what professional clubs is and how they operate. Teams at clubs, men and women, first teams, best players, reserve second, who can be called to replace players in each team, and under 18 teams. So they have the best teams of men and women, the first ones. They have a reserve from where they can call the players to be part of the first team. And then they have an under 18 team from where the players can develop and come into the first team. So 3 sort of teams, right? The first, the reserve, and under 18. Is that clear to all of you? So the first, where the players come to the first team, either from the reserve or either from the under 18, right? We'll see, is there any other source of players coming to the first team? Each team has a manager in charge of it. And each team also has a coaching staff and a support staff. Look at my TP2, thinking point 2, or thought process 2. Role of a team manager, effective leadership. Might be the examining team ask you some sort of explain the role of an effective team manager or role of an effective leadership, because currently the team manager is playing a role of an effective leader. How successful your team is depends upon your team manager. How brilliantly your team manager is guiding the team, controlling the team, supporting the team, motivating the team. So is the thought process too clear to all of you? The role of the team manager or effective leadership of the team manager in managing the team? Because he's in charge of the team, right? Next, 5 professional clubs have their own academies. So there are numerous clubs under Kyle Land in the country, but 5 of them have their own academies. Now, what academies do? Recruit players from the age of 9 upwards, provide them educational development, train them and make them polished up for the main team. So academies is like a nourishing ground. It's like the kindergarten where you prepare the players for future. And you start from the age of 9 onwards, and you develop them, you polish them, you refine them till the time they become part of the first team, men first or women first, the best players, right? AT do have this academy setup. I read the later pages, and I hope if you read the later pages as well, it is written that AT do have this academy setup as well, and is considered to be the best in Thailand and upgraded in the last 5 years. So that this is quite a plus point for AT, and it is written from the page number 9 onwards, and it tells us that AT do have this academy, and it's considered to be one of the best academies we have in Thailand. So that is one of their strength as an organization. And this academy was upgraded in the last 5 years. So 5 of the clubs have academy. So does this 5 includes AT, all of you? 5 of the clubs have this academy. So does this 5 includes AT? So will you remember for the day of exam that AT do have an academy? They do have the training facility. Yes, Mazhar Ali, the training facility is the same as academy, right? The training facility word being used is the same as academy, right? So AT do have an academy setup. So that's basically the training facility, right? Training facility. Is that clear to all of you? Right, so the description of the training facility and academy is the same, right? I hope you're all clear on that. Mohammed Zishan, you can research on Google about the football clubs. The training facility and academy is synonyms to one another, right? So I've just done my research before conducting this session. Academy and training facility is the same thing, right? 5 of the clubs have these academies. So in those 5 clubs, AT is one of them. Is that clear to all of you? Mohammed Zishan and Nias, because you had some sort of doubts over there. I hope you are sound and clear. Okay. Number 4th, first team players have generally moved up from other teams at the same club or have been transferred in from other clubs. From where does the players come to the first team? Either they're coming from the same club, from the under 18 team, from the reserve team, or they have been transferred from the other club, or you have bought a player, sorry, from another club by paying a transfer fees. So how do you make the first team of players? From the reserves, from the under 18s, and by buying a player, right? By buying a player from another club. Is that right? That's how you make the team of the first players, right? And even from the academies, right? So there are a lot of sources from where you can build up your first players, right? Last point. When the players are transferred between clubs, a transfer fees is payable to the club selling the player by the club buying the player, right? So if a club is buying the player, they will pay a transfer fee to the club selling the player, and these transfer fees can be very high. For the clubs, these players are assets. They treat them like assets. So it's like a capital expenditure for them. They're buying a player and they're paying a heavy price for buying these players. And I hope you've read later in the case that they need to amortize this transfer fees over the years, right? A number of years they're keeping the player with them. Most important driver of profitability for professional clubs is the performance of their men first team in the Thailand Football League and international competition. So how well is your men first team performing is a success criteria for your overall profitability. So your profitability depends upon how successful your men first team is in Thailand Football League and the international competitions. So I think the most important information we had in this paragraph is that, number one, we had that each team has a manager, and that role of manager is very, very important. Number two, we can buy a player from another team. We need to pay a transfer fees. The transfer fees could be very lucrative. The transfer fees is like your capital expenditure, and that is amortized over the time zone you're keeping the player with. I hope you are all clear with it. And the most important element of your profitability is how well your men first team is performing. Is everyone clear by now? The next thing, how is the men first team built up? We got an answer to that. Players coming from under 18 or player coming from academies or the reserve teams, right? Or players transferred from other clubs. So how you build up the first team? Is everyone clear with point number 1 and point number 2? Okay. What is the transfer fees? The transfer fees is paid by the buying club to the seller club, which for the best player can be very large. Realistically, if you look at these international clubs, in the realistic scenarios, it runs into millions of dollars and millions of pounds for buying the best players. Right? So please remember these terminologies. They can provide you context on the day of exam, the transfer fees, the men first team, how the men first team is built up, academies, and so on and so forth. Okay, now coming to the more important information is about the KFL, which is the Kailine Football League. And this league is very important because this league and the position you have in this league determine your profitability as a club. There are 3 divisions within this league, and within each division, there are 18 teams. So each team plays another 17 teams in each division. Team play each other 2 times, one at their home ground and one at their opponent home ground. So that's how they're playing the matches, right? So one match will be played at your home ground and one match will be played at the opponent home ground. So 2 matches per team. So 18 teams in one division. Which is the leading division of the 3? Anyone remembers that? Which is the leading division of the 3? Division 1, Division 2, Division 3. Which is the most high-ranked division? Division 1, right? So any team who is in the Division 1 is the most high-ranked 18 teams. How many teams are there in Division 1? 18. So will these 18 teams be considered as the most important teams? And how many total teams we have? 18 multiplied by 3? How many total teams we have? 54. So of 54, which are the top 18 teams? The one who are in Division 1. So everyone would like to be part of Division 1, and everyone would like to improve their ratings and rankings to be part of Division 1. At the end of each season, the 2 teams with the fewest points are relegated from Division 1 and Division 2 of the KFL and play in the next division in the Division 3. So any team who comes lowest in Division 1 and any team who comes lowest in the Division 2, they will be relegated and play in the next division down the following season. So they will move their position from Division 1 and 2 to the Division 3. The teams with the lowest points. Number 2, the teams with the most points are promoted from Division 2 and Division 3 of the KFL and play in the next division up the following season. So any team who got the best position in Division 3 will move up to Division 2, and any team who got the best position from Division 2 will move up to Division 1. Any team who got the lowest spot in Division 1 will move to Division 2, and any team who got the lowest spot in Division 2 will move to Division 3. Is everyone clear with that? Are you all sound with how the teams will go from a division down and a division up? Okay, great. Whoever wins a division are awarded a trophy. So whoever wins the Division 1, Division 2, Division 3, so all the top teams of Division 1, 2, 3 are awarded trophy. Teams which are promoted to the next division may benefit from increased sponsorship and income from television. So any team who gets promoted from Division 3 to Division 2 or from Division 2 to Division 1 just because of being top ranked in that particular division, you will increase your sponsorship and television promotions. Clubs in Division 1 of the KFL have supporters not just in Thailand, but all over the world. So if you are part of the Division 1, do you have supporters just in Thailand or all over the world? Right? All over, right? So is AT part of the Division 1? Is AT part of the Division 1? Right? Is AT part of the Division 1? Yes. So is AT being having a brand image just in Thailand or all over the world? Okay. In total, how many clubs we have? Each division have 18 teams. So how many clubs we have in total? 18 teams in each division. So how many clubs we have in total? 54 clubs. And how many clubs have academies? How many clubs have academies of these 54? 5. Okay, great. So at least you're bringing things on your fingertips. Okay, next go down. Then they have a domestic cup competition. Then they have an international competition. To me, this international competition is very important. Just let's read through it. The top 3 teams in Division 1 in Thailand also play in the Wokian International League, along with the most successful teams from other countries in Wokia. Wokia is a continent, right? So they play at a continent level. Wokian International League. Which teams? The top 3 teams in Division 1. So is AT playing this Wokian International League? Yes or no? Is AT playing the Wokian International League? No, because the current position is what? The current position is 8th. They have never been top 3 in the recent history they've given to us in the exam paper, right? I think it was 5, 6, 8, something like that. So they're not into top 3s. So my point of concern, can you see my TP4? Currently, AT is not in top 3. Should they work on it? Should they try to improve their progress and performance to be part of the top 3 in the Division 1? Should they think about changing their manager? Should they think about buying the best players to be part of their team for the future? So can questions around a change of a manager or buying some more lucrative players, some more known players from other teams be a wise decision, considering you have the right income to be spent on that? Right? So that's very, very important, right? Playing in Wokian International League means club can earn more revenue. So currently AT is not earning that because they're not part of it, from having more games and having more matches in the International League broadcast live on television. TP5, currently AT is far away from this exposure. So do AT have exposure to this revenue? No, because they're not in top 3. But can they have a plan to become a top 3 team for the next 5 years? Can a question ask you an exam paper to devise a plan that how AT can be the top 3 in the next 5 years? What sort of changes needs to be done in the management, in the structure of the players, or in their academies, which can ensure that AT is among the top 3 over the next few years? So consider that as the TP5. Currently, AT is far away from this exposure to extra income. So they're not part of international competition, right? So I'm just putting a big cross over here. AT is not part of the international competition. They are part of the domestic competition. They're part of the Thailand Football League. And the current position is 8th, right? Okay, something about the other teams, the women's and reserves. So women teams also have their own leagues and the reserves have their own leagues as well. So they keep playing under their own respective leagues. Just like you have the men leagues, you have the leagues for the reserves and you have leagues for the women teams as well. Do AD have a woman team? Was that mentioned anywhere in the scenario? Anyone remembers that? Yes, they do have a women league as well, right? The woman team, sorry. That's great. Okay. Now moving towards the next part. Now, just before moving towards the next part of this pre-seen building, how much of information have we got so far? We got to know about the continent, which is Wokia. We got to know about the country, which is Thailand. We got to know about the famous league, which is the Kyland Football League. We got to know there are 3 divisions under this league, and in each division, we have 18 clubs representing. And whichever team comes first in Division 2 and Division 3, they're promoted up. Whichever teams come last in Division 1 and Division 2, they're promoted to the next division. So that's important information. We also need to know that there is an international cup which is held at the Wokia level, but currently AT is not part of that competition because they're placed at the eighth level. So see, this is how you're absorbing the information. Each team has a manager. The role of manager is very important. And you also need to remember that how is the men first team formulated? The most important thing in how you formulate a men team is the transfer of players from another club, which is very, very important. Okay, now we get to the regulatory part. In terms of the regulatory part, there is an industry body, right, which governs these clubs. KFL, the Kyland Football League, is governed by the Kyland Football Association, KFA. So do you have a regulatory body? What will that be known as in exam paper? The regulatory body will be known as KFA, which is Kyland Football Association, which governs everything. KFA enforce the playing and other regulations which you have to follow as a club. Other regulation includes the financial fair play regulation, which is the most important to me in this whole pre-seen. And I'll be spending a bit more time on financial fair play regulation. The KFA recommends that club follow generally accepted corporate governance best practices. Now, my concern is that KFA recommends that club follow generally accepted corporate governance best practices. Currently, if you have read the case ahead, AT only have an audit committee. They don't have other committees. And AT only have 2 NEDs, if you have read the case ahead. So can the regulator ask AT to adopt a better governance, have more NEDs on board, and have more committees in place? Because currently they have only an audit committee and they just have 2 NEDs. So can this be a point of concern for KFA pressurizing AT? Right? So can we consider this as another thinking point? TP, we had TP number what? We have TP number 5. So we can make this as TP number 6, thought process 6. And we can just make this statement in red. So you remember that. So KFA also recommends best practices to be followed by clubs. So they can also recommend this to be on part of AT. And currently AT has just 1 audit committee and they only have 2 non-executive directors. So somewhere, some sort of a thought process comes into it. Yes, we know that it is not a listed company, but there could be a case in exam where they are thinking about listing soon because they need finance, right? Jinesh, do AT needs income? Do they need income generation? Can they offer their shares on a stock market? Can they generate funds from there to build new stadiums? So are they desperate about listing on a stock market? Could there be any specific exhibit for that in exam paper? Because that will help them raise funds, right? Do AT needs fund for building new stadiums, expanding? Right, so I see there could be something in specific exhibits on the day of exam that the company is thinking about listing. And how will that listing change their corporate governance? They could think about listing in view of some pressure coming from KFA, etc. Now, KFA is a regulator. So do you believe this regulator has a high power? Is it a keep satisfied category in Menlo metrics? Is it a keep satisfied category in Menlo metrics? Because regulators are keep satisfied, right? You need to keep them satisfied as regulators. So look at my thought process. Sorry, this will be my thought process number 7 audit committee because I already have my 6 number here. Look at my TP6, compliance, penalties, because this industry body KFA is your regulator. You need to keep him satisfied, otherwise you will have a bad press, and a bad press will disturb your reputation as AT. So is it an important stakeholder? Would you like to keep this stakeholder happy and satisfied all time? Right? Would you like to keep this stakeholder happy and satisfied all time? Otherwise, you can face a bad press. Otherwise, you can face penalties. This can affect your repute as AT. So this is important, right? So you cannot just undermine the importance of KFA in the whole scenario. So remember, there is another terminology, KFA. KFL was the league, and KFA is the association. Okay, fair pay regulation, something very important in this whole case study. Now, what is a fair pay regulation? Let's see what KFA is doing for a fair pay regulation and how can it be applied to AT. FFPR, which is the Financial Fair Pay Regulation, are designed to stop professional clubs spending more than what they earn, which is very good. So this FFPR is ensuring that the clubs are not spending more than what they earn. They don't want the clubs to get bankrupt or liquidated, and therefore stop getting into financial difficulties, which may jeopardize their existence. So is this something good on part of KFA to have an FFPR in place to ensure all clubs have a good financial sustainability? No clubs are closed down. No clubs are bankrupt. So you're only spending within your incomes. You're not spending out of your income. You're not going for high gearings. You're not going for too much bank loans, which can even make your life difficult to repay them back. Okay, FFPR applies to club relevant income. So where does FFPR apply? What sort of spending are we talking about? That your spending should not be more than what you're earning. Which earning are we talking about? Relevant earning. And is the examining team giving us the definition of what relevant earning is? Which are not identical to accounting profit. So in the exam, when you are to judge the FFPR, you need not to take into account the accounting profit. You're looking into account the relevant earning of AT, which could be given in exam paper. Now, what is relevant earning? Relevant earning is equal to relevant income minus relevant expenses. So should your expense exceed income? Should your relevant expense exceed relevant income? Yes, sorry, it has to be a fair play regulation, right? Sorry. Fair play regulation. Just sorry for that typing mistake. Right? So your relevant earning is your relevant income minus relevant expenses. So what is the definition of the relevant income? All this is part of relevant income. Prize money, ticket sales, TV revenue, income from selling advertisement, merchandise sales, profit on disposal of tangible non-current assets, and profit on sale of players. So if you're selling a player to another club, the profit on sale of that player would also be part of the relevant income. What are relevant expenses? Salaries, amortization of the transfer cost. And you know, the transfer cost is a big chunk of money you need to pay to get a player. And the amortization would be a very big expense. Loss on disposal of a tangible non-current asset, loss on sale of player to other club, finance cost, and dividends. So these are relevant incomes. These are relevant expenses. Please ensure from the examination perspective, you know what falls under relevant income. You know what falls under relevant expenses. I doubt the examining team would ask you to calculate the relevant earnings, but they can. So to be on the safe side, please know the formula of relevant income and relevant expenses so that you can find out the relevant earnings on a given day. Or the board can ask you to guide them about what a relevant earning concept is. So you should know what a relevant earning concept is. It's different from the accounting profit. You need to know the incomes falling under. You need to know what are expenses falling under this. right? So then the next is the FFPR allow each club to have relevant expenses exceeding relevant incomes to a maximum of $5 million calculated over a 3-year period. Your expenses can exceed your income to a maximum of $5 million, but that has to be over a 3-year period. For a single year, it's not calculated on a single year basis. It's calculated on an average of 3 years. So your expenses can exceed income for a maximum of $5 million over a 3-year period. Can an examining team ask you as a thought process 8 to evaluate AT performance in line with FFPR? Have they already given you a table in a pre-seen where they have evaluated what $5 million over a 3-year period means? Can they give you a real context in some exhibit on the day of exam and ask you to evaluate the performance of AT in line with FFPR? Are they falling under or over the $5 million? Right? So I hope you're very familiar with this table. If I can just show you that on your screen now. Okay, can you see this table given here as an example by the examiner over a 3-year period? For example, in the year 1, the relevant earning is 25 million. Then in the year 2, the relevant earnings are negative 20 million. And in the year 3, the relevant earnings are 17 million. Now that means in the year 1, because you have a positive 25, so that means your income is more and your expenses are less. But in the year 2, you have a negative 20. So that means your expenses are more and your income are less. So your relevant earning is coming in negative. And then in the third year, your relevant earning is coming positive. So that means your income is more and your expenses are less. Now, over a 3-year period, your total relevant earnings are 22. I hope you know how you got this 22, right? So that's 25 minus 20 and then 17. So you accumulated these 3 figures. So the total relevant earning over a 3-year period has come to 22. Now, is 22 you compare this with the $5 million ceiling, sorry, right? There is a $5 million ceiling with which you need to compare that. So has you breached the regulation? No, we have not breached the regulation because we have a positive $22 million. The expenses should not exceed income by $5 million. So currently we have a positive 22, so we have no worries. But then when you look at the next 3 years, years from 2 to 4, they have a negative 4. So negative 4 is also fine because it should not exceed 5. Then when we look at the year 3 to 5, they have a positive 14. So positive 14 is not an issue. The negative is an issue. But when you look at the year 4 to 6, that is where the problem is because they have a negative 7 and they have exceeded the $5 million ceiling. So have they breached the regulation? Yes, they have breached the regulation. So can they ask you a real question on the day of exam to assess AT performance in terms of the relevant earnings each year, and have they breached the regulation or not? So can they give you some sort of this exhibit in a real exam and can ask you to evaluate in which particular years have AT breached the regulation? Is that clear to all of you? So are you fine with this table and the understanding of this table? You know how to calculate that 3-year period? So the example given by the examining team and the calculation of a 3-year period and whether the regulation has been breached or not, is that clear to all of you? Because you might need to apply the same on the day of the real exam. So be very sure and be very clear. But is FFPR good for a club? Is it good for a financial sustainability of a club? If you ask to write the benefits of FFPR, is it really beneficial for a club? Does it ensure you have financial stability, financial sustainability? Does it ensure your expenses does not exceeds income? And does it gives you an alertness before something worst happen? Does it alerts you before something worst happen? FFPR. So when you're making a table like such, you're evaluating your 3-year period. So does it gives you a signal before the worst happens? So please remember that FFPR is one of a very important regulation which the KFA has put in place. And particularly this $5 million is very, very important because this could be utilized in the exam paper as a very important information. And please remember the formula of the relevant earning. It's the relevant income minus relevant expenses, and you should know what fall under each. What are implications if you exceed $5 million over a 3-year period? That's given in the case study. Penalties for breaching FFPR includes fine, loss of points, loss of prize money in the league, not being allowed to compete in the Kyland Domestic Cup or the Wokian International League, and relegation to lower divisions for a serious breaches. Is this important? Will any club like to breach FFPR? Look at the consequences. Look at the implications in place. So you need to be very watchful of these implications in exam. You need to be watchful whether FFPR is being breached by AT or not. If AT is breaching this, what sort of implications they can they need? What sort of implications can come on them for the breach? So please remember these breaches are very, very important, and you note these breaches down very, very carefully. Okay, now moving on to the media coverage, we know that's particularly fine. The KFL Division 1s are broadcast live on television. So is AT part of Division 1? Yes, they are. So do they have a media coverage as AT? Yes. So the Division 1 is broadcasted live, which is something important to remember. No, FFPR is a regulation, right? FFPR is a regulation T. KFA is the regulatory body which introduced FFPR. So FFPR is not a regulator. FFPR is a regulation, right? The KFA is your keep satisfied category. Okay, industry challenges. What sort of industry challenges are going on in Kyland? Let's see those challenges. The main challenge club face is for their men first team to remain successful. So that's quite a pressure. Every club want that my men first team remains successful. This means consistently achieving high leagues position and performing well in Kyland domestic cup competition so that they can qualify for and hopefully do well in the Wokian International League. So is there a pressure on every club to perform best? Is there a lot of pressure on the men first team to perform excellent? Because that's how you build up your income. That's how you build up your brand image, your repute, your point tables, your standing in a division, and qualifying for the Wokian International League. To achieve success, club makes significant expenditure. So a lot of clubs needs to make significant expenditures to achieve success, buying best players and paying high salaries with these player demands. This is realistic. Look at these international clubs, the known ones we have under football leagues globally. You pay so much to these players. Look at their lifestyles of these players. You need to pay them. You need to retain them because these players help you win matches. Clubs can have financial difficulties ensuring their income is greater than clubs can have difficulties ensuring their income is greater than expenditure, and they're under pressure of FFPR. At any point over a 3-year period, if their expenses exceeds income by $5 million, they would be under serious breaches. So there is a pressure of FFPR. There is also a pressure to be the best. There is also a pressure to buy players. So that means the financial handling of a club is very difficult. The operating profit of a number of leading clubs have fallen in recent years, primarily due to increasing cost connected with player. So this is my thinking point 9, shareholder dissatisfactions. Your shareholder will be dissatisfied because if your operating profits are falling in recent years. And I hope that is the case with AT as well. I will be sharing that information tomorrow, but I think there is some sort of financial issues with AT in terms of the financial information given to us by the examiner. So operating profit of number of leading clubs have fallen in recent years. Number of leading clubs, including AT. So do you all agree managing the financial affair of club is easy, or is it really challenging, considering we have an FFPR in place and the pressure of FFPR? Is it really complex to manage the financial affair of a club? So should we have sound decision makers? Should we have a sound finance team, a well-equipped finance team who can look after the financial affairs very well? Because they have to keep a watch on their income as well as expenses every time. They don't want their expenses to overrun income because they will be under threats of breaches, fines, penalties from KFA. Okay, then the examining team has given us some sort of threats and risk which are being faced by clubs in Thailand. There's a long list of 13. So again, you know, a lot of exam questions comes around evaluation of risk or likelihood and impact of risk or risk register or risk management approach of AT. So questions around risk management or risk mitigation or risk management approach, which has been very common in the past paper. Considering the amount of information which has been given to us about risk and threats, we could have a specific exhibit in exam which can give us a risk register of AT or risk management of AT, and can ask you to critically evaluate the risk management of AT or evaluate the risk register of AT, or the likelihood and impact of some of the risk which AT is facing. So that seems quite potential, considering loads of information has been given to us about risk and threats in this paper. So I have a thought process 10 at the end of the list of risk and threats. A specific exhibit on the day of exam, providing information about AT specific risk, asked to evaluate risk, asked to evaluate the risk mitigation approach of AT, or management risk, or the management, or the risk management approach, or the risk management approach adopted by AT. You must have seen these questions in the past paper, right? About risk mitigation, about the risk management approach, about evaluating risk, about risk registers. So a potential of a reoccurrence of a question like such is quite possible. We know risk is a very favorite area of an SBL examining team as well. So please ensure you have a good insight of these 11 risk and threats. I'm not just going over each one of them. I hope they're very self-explanatory to the context of the football clubs we are talking about. But some of these risks can relate to AT in a real scenario on the day of exam. So out of the 13, some of them could be part of the real risk which AT is facing in a certain exhibit on the day of exam. So please ensure you're very sound and clear with this. Okay, then we have stakeholders. A section has been given about stakeholders in the pre-seen. It's telling us about some of the internal stakeholders of the football club, which includes shareholders, directors, players, team managers, and coaching staff, and some other stakeholders, which include supporters, retail customers, broadcasters, commercial sponsors, merchandise suppliers, etc. Even the KFA, right? The KFA being the other key stakeholders. My concern is assessing stakeholder influence or conflicting demands of stakeholders. We have seen questions in past papers around conflicting demands of stakeholders. We have seen questions around assessing influence of each of the key stakeholders. So the question might ask you to assess the influence of shareholders or directors or team managers or television broadcasters. The examiner can give you some specific stakeholders to assess their influence and their conflicting demands, or how their conflicting demands can affect the strategic objective of AT as a club. So questions around stakeholder, questions around Menlo metrics, questions around how the stakeholder demands affect the strategic objective of AT seems quite likely. How stakeholder influence affect strategic objectives of AT. Something like that. Okay, then we have information around 8 leading teams in KFL Division 1, and it is about the Athletic Trans Central. Athletic Trans Central was at number 5 of the 18 clubs we have in Division 1. They deteriorate to number 6, and they're further deteriorated to number 8. So is there a constant deterioration in their rankings? And is this a point of concern? Constant deterioration in rankings. So is this a point of concern where the question can have a specific information on the day of exam? And you might need to evaluate the underlying reason why they're not performing well, because they're going down from 5 to 6 to 8, which is very, very bad. So what sort of measures, what sort of steps AT can take to boost their positions in the next season? Their stadium capacity is 38,000. If you've read the case well, it's lowest among all 8 leading clubs. I hope the stadium capacity of all 8 clubs have been given in the Division 1, and it is the lowest stadium capacity. So they need to expand upon the stadiums. They need to build upon the new stadiums for the in the coming years. Where will the finance come from? Where will the income come from to get the stadium upgraded, a big stadium? So more people can come in, more ticket sales can come in, so on and so forth. But currently, it's the lowest in all 8 clubs. The revenue is 342 million for AT, which is the lowest among all 8 leading clubs. That's again an information given in the case study. So your revenue is 342 million, but that's the lowest among all 8 clubs given to us in a table of Division 1. So they have a lot to consider to grow, to increase their income prospects, to increase prospects of a big stadium, and their rankings are going down. So lots of challenges developing for AT. Areas to be considered by AT for future growth. This is my TP12. Points to ponder by AT management as drivers of change. How can they change themselves for future? How can they change themselves in the next 2 to 3 years? The clubs with top 3 teams in Division 1 of KFL in the season 20x2, 20x3 have all moved to new stadiums in the last 8 years. So the top 3 clubs have moved to new stadiums in the last 8 years, sorry. These stadiums offer better facilities for supporters as well as increased capacity. Is it a point to ponder for AT management? Tell me. Is it a point to consider for AT management that when are we planning the new stadium? When are we moving to a new stadium? And what sort of funds are required? Can there be a question where you need to evaluate the pros and cons of building a new stadium, or the financial analysis of building a new stadium? Everyone? Right, so this is the first thought process. The second thought process is the clubs who have built new stadiums have also managed to increase their income from hiring out their facilities for non-football events. So can you rent your stadium for other activities, like any concert? Is that an extra income coming out of your stadium? So is this a potential source of income where AT can also think about? Can AT think about building a large stadium and then renting the stadium for other events when it is not being utilized? Number third, the new stadiums have built to maximize energy usage, efficiency, and reduction of carbon footprint. So if AT also builds a new stadium, will this help them to maximize energy usage efficiency? Will they reduce their electricity bills or electricity costs? And will they also be environmental friendly by the reduction of carbon footprint? Will the environmental agencies be happy with AT? So these are points to ponder. The last point to ponder, the clubs with top 4 teams in Division 1 of KFL in 20x2, 20x3 seasons have their own television channels. So can AT also think about having their own television channel, which can give them more media publicity, more better brand repute, and more better popularity? So are there a number of things where AT is lagging behind? Yes or no? Are there a number of things where AT can ponder about future? So can any sort of question comes in the exam paper which asks you to develop a business case for making a new stadium and how new stadium can be beneficial for AT? Will you remember that you can even rent the new stadium for some other activities when not being used? Or how the new stadium can reduce the carbon footprint as a benefit, and how the new stadium can improve your energy efficiency? And can there be a case of developing of having your own television channel which can promote your club, your players? So a lot of things which can potentially be worked by the management of AT in the next couple of years. And there could be some case specific exhibits on the day of exam which develops a need of such. Sufyan, I will be creating the link of carbon footprint with the stadium when I look at the AT information tomorrow, because they have a website extract which links with sustainability. So what sort of sustainability measure can a stadium do for a club? We'll link this with that information tomorrow, right? Okay, then we have been given some KPIs, financial KPIs and non-financial KPIs. I hope there could be a question in exam paper where you need to evaluate the AT financial and non-financial performance versus the industry KPIs. So you might be given information in a case and you need to evaluate AT in view of financial performance and in view of non-financial performance. I think some of the financial performance of AT is given in the pre-seen, yes, which I will be dealing with tomorrow. So we'll at least do the comparison of the financial performance with the financial KPIs tomorrow, because this information is further given in the pre-seen. But in the exam, you could have a specific exhibit about non-financial information about AT, and you could be asked to evaluate the non-financial information of AT versus the stated KPIs. So please ensure you know these KPIs and you're well versed with these KPIs about the football clubs. So this is a summary of things we have on 8 pages. If you can just do a quick recap in the next 5 minutes. I need to guide you about the important articles, and I need to guide you about how this case connects with some potential thinking points, because this case has a much of a relevance to a very popular club, Manchester United. So I just need to discuss for 5 minutes Manchester United, and a lot of facts about this club is much in line with Manchester United if you follow the football as a sport. So the next 10 minutes, I'll be making a quick summary, and then we'll spend some time on Manchester United to identify potential questions or potential thought process, some key articles to read around what we have discussed today, and then wrap up the session number 1. I hope the thought process which I've given you across the 3 pages will be helping you all. You will get this Word document. You will take out a printout of this Word document. I'll be sharing it in the groups and then uploading it on the portal. So at least there is no time lapse. You get it as instantly as possible. So is everyone clear with the thought process we have covered down? I think there were a couple of, there were like 12 thought processes in total, right? Which we went through. Okay, now just a quick recap. Listen to me very carefully. We'll just go back to my presentation now. Now, today we have studied about information about football sector in Thailand. We started with some basic information about the continent, Wokia. We started about the country, which itself is Thailand. We got to know about the clubs which are there in Thailand, a total of 54 clubs. And of those 54 clubs, one is AT, which is the focused club we have in the case study. Then we got to know about the teams for men and women, the reserve teams, the under 18 teams, how the men first team is built up, particularly the players you buy from other clubs, the transfer fees you pay to buy those players, which could be very lucrative. That was a very, very important information. We do got information about the regulator, which was KFA, and that KFA was an important regulator. We got some information about the corporate governance of AT, that AT just have an audit committee and 2 non-executive directors. So there could be a potential pressure from KFA to improve upon the corporate governance at AT. Currently, AT is not a listed company. They can think about becoming listed. The FFPR was a very important regulation. which ensures that the financial sustainability and financial success of each club is maintained, and your expenses, your relevant expenses, should not exceed your relevant income by $5 million over a 3-year period, which was a very, very important ceiling. And there were some strict fines and penalties for the breach of that $5 million, which was very, very important. We got to know some important stakeholders, internal and external, for the clubs, which was important. We got to know some industry challenges. We got to know some risk and threats of the industry. And then we got to know some KPIs, the financials and the non-financial KPIs around the football sector. So that was all important. We got to know that your performance as AT has deteriorated from number 5 position to number 6 to number 8. Your stadium is very small. Number 3, we got to know that your revenue is the least in among all 8 clubs. There were some potential points to ponder, and the potential points to ponder was building a new stadium, having your own television channel. These are some points which you need to ponder upon for future success, and improving your team rankings. So see, this is how much I have absorbed. Each day, if you read through Pre-seen, you will keep absorbing terminologies like KFL, KFA, FFPR, AT. Those terminologies will come on you, and you will keep absorbing them. So on the day of exam, when you're answering something spontaneously, you can refer to FFPR, $5 million. You can refer to the 8th position of AT, deterioration in position. You can refer to their stadium capacity being the lowest one among 8 clubs. So these sort of examples or information can come naturally in your answer on the day of exam. So will you take a printout of this summary on 3 pages? Will you read through the thought process? Will you read through the relevance of what I wrote in red? Will you develop your own notes around it for the next couple of days before you get into the real exam environment? Was it beneficial? You must have read the Pre-seen yourself, and I read the Pre-seen with you. Did you found some extra added benefit or extra absorption? So was there any increment in terms of some soundness or some absorption? Okay, great. Now, the last thing. Manchester United, right? I hope a lot of students must be knowing about it. How many of you have information about Manchester United as a very famous football club? If you can say I do or I don't. And how many of you watch football or you're crazy about football? But crazy about football doesn't mean you're passing this upcoming exams in March 24, because you have good information. You are a keen player, keen TV audience of the football, and you will pass the upcoming exams because you have a lot of information about football, right? Okay, I was just gathering information about Manchester United before the session today, and I thought this AT was some sort of a replica of how things are moving for Manchester United. I hope if you read through whole Pre-seen, this is owned by a family, right? AT, true or false? Is there a family owning AT? True. I'll be doing that tomorrow, right? So when I look at Manchester United was family owned for like 22 years, from like 1980 to 2002. So they were family owned. But then it went to listing in 1991. 11 years after it was formed, they went for listing. So I believe there could be a question in exam which could ask you about the potential benefits of getting AT listed. Think about that. Note it down. So what are potential benefits of getting AT listed? Note it down somewhere. Number 1, right? If I can take on my Word file, that would be more appropriate. Okay, if I can just note it down somewhere. I hope you can see the Word file back again. I'm just trying to compare this with Manchester United, and we'll then make a final version of it, right? Can you all see the Word file? for the next couple of minutes? Okay, thank you. Manchester United. Manchester United versus 80 thought process. So I have some thought process to share with you. Number one, when I looked at Manchester United and read about it, so it was a family-owned club which later moved to listing. Family-owned, later move to listing. So my concern is, can 80 consider listing itself, and what could be the potential benefits? Think about that. Number two, Manchester United was taken over by a very renowned American businessman, which was known as Glazer. And in the history, it's known as a Glazer takeover. I think the full name of the person was Malcolm Glazer. So there was a Glazer takeover of Manchester United, because the club was struggling and the club performance was deteriorating. Even 80 performance is deteriorating. The rankings are going down. The stadium is small. The income is small. In all that case, there could be a potential businessman, a potential person who could think about the acquisition of this particular club to help this club grow. Do you believe if any businessman come with a deal to buy 80, would that be a good deal to expand upon 80 brand image, brand repute? Will the management of 80 say yes to the businessman coming with a big briefcase with millions of dollars and saying, I'll spend millions of dollars on your club and make your club more popular, better in ratings, listings, and everything? So can there be a relevance of the article Growing in Partnership, which is a new article for March 24 exams? Because in Growing in Partnership, there is a concept of merger and acquisitions, right? There is a concept of a strategic alliance. So can someone come with a takeover bid or with a merger deal with this club? So any sort of growing in partnership can be a good model for this club to grow in future, right? So tell me honestly, will 80 management consider ways to grow? Yes or no? Are they struggling? Will they consider ways to grow in future? So will the club management be open to anything, open to any ideas which can help them grow? Even listing can help bring funds to them, and those funds could be utilized for the growth. Any takeover bids coming from any potential businessman, just like Manchester United get from Glazer. And Glazer took over Manchester United. He pumped millions of dollars into this club. And I think somewhere around 2010 or 12, Manchester United was listed on the New York Stock Exchange. So that was a big achievement. And their IPO was very successful. They got a lot of money from that IPO from the New York Stock Exchange, and that helped the club build upon their stadiums and build upon their brand repute. We know Manchester United is among the top 6 in the English Premier League, and English Premier League is one of the biggest league globally. They're not number 1, they're number 6. And that's where 80 is. 80 is not number 1. It is into that number 5, 6, 8 bracket. They have some sort of challenges which Manchester United had, and then Manchester United was taken over. So the family business was dissolved. It was taken over by Glazer. Yes, exactly. You are perfectly right, Zishan. In between, Manchester United got delisted, and then they got relisted again. So I think in 91 they got listing. Then they got some delistings after they were acquired by Glazer. And few years later, they got listing back on the New York Stock Exchange. So you're perfectly right in that historical perspective. So my concern is Glazer takeover of Manchester United. So there could be any potential bid by a businessman to take over 80, or any sort of strategy mentioned under the article growing in partnership could be potential to be applied to AT. So please ensure you have read that article well. Strategic alliance, franchising, licensing, because any of those aspects like benefits could be asked in the exam in any context. So you're not undermining that article. So listing for AT, any takeover of AT could be some thought process which you can work on. They need a stadium boost, right? AT needs a stadium boost. They need income boost. They need funds. So all this can come from some sort of listing, some sort of a potential businessman coming and buying your club. So I hope this could be working in their best interest as well. So this is something you can ponder about, Manchester United versus AT, and how similarities are there between both the organizations. Though the case studies are built around fictitious organization, this is just a thought process. And this is just my own perception that this is much in line with Manchester United. I hope this will all benefit you. Yes, the family business the family needs to consider selling their rights if any takeover bids come in, because currently the family owns the business, T, right? So when anyone comes, they will deal with the family. And the family needs to think, will they sell their share? Even when Manchester United was family owned, and the family sold their stakes to Glazer, and Glazer got the significant share of Manchester United. So that's what the family at 80 needs to do for the future prospects of this club. I hope you're clear with that, T. Okay, now, based upon my perception, before I do the session 2 tomorrow, these are some of the articles you can ponder about reading. Responsible leadership, because there was something about role of a team manager. So knowing what are characteristic of a responsible leadership from part A of the syllabus article. Environmental and sustainability issues, because there are something about environment on the website extracts of AT, which we will do tomorrow. So a question around environment, a question about sustainability or carbon footprints of the stadium would come into focus. All about stakeholders, because there was some relevance of stakeholder discussions. So all about stakeholder part 2 article could be really important. And I'll show you the relevance of the part 2 tomorrow, because I hope if you have read the remaining information of the pre-seen, there was some traffic issues around the stadium, and the local community is very affected because of those traffic issues. How would you deal with the demands of the local community about the traffic issues? How would you deal them as a stakeholder? How would you satisfy their demands as a stakeholder? So that sort of a discussion and the importance of a local community as a stakeholder is all what you can get from all about stakeholder part 2. Then next about integrated reporting. Again, we know adoption of integrated reporting by an organization is a very popular topic with your SBL examiner. So the club adopting the integrated reporting framework for the variety of stakeholder, again, cannot be ruled out. Strategic planning process part 2 article under syllabus area C. Strategic choice, because there are a lot of choices in front of AT to grow. Which choice will they implement? The application of the SAF model, suitability, acceptability, and feasibility. The choices, they have a lot of choices to grow. The choices can be given in the exhibit, and you need to apply the SAF model to the choices. So a strategic planning process part 2 article under syllabus area C. Growing in partnership under syllabus area C, which is important being a new article. Strategic and operational risk, because a lot of risk and threats were discussed in the pre-seen. So knowing what are strategic risk, what are operational risk, it could be a question in exam paper where they might ask you about the classifications of strategic and operational risk and which of the strategic risk are more important to AT. E-commerce, because they have a website. The information tells us they have a website. but they can further expand upon websites. They can further ensure that their website is in line with the competitor clubs. They have every feature which their competitor club is offering on their website. So building more of e-commerce on their existing website could be potential. Applying big data, it was mentioned in the case study, which we will read tomorrow, that they have a lot of data and information, and their information system is very strong. They do have data about ticket holders and customers who buy merchandises, but are they using that data for the benefit of the club? Are they analyzing the data for the benefit of the club? So what can be the benefits of big data for AT? And assessing organizational performance, because a lot of KPIs were given, financial and non-financial. So assessing organizational performance on the side of financial and non-financial, or even relevant earning and the $5 million. So would sounds important. And the last one, the Baldrige Performance Excellence Model, a holistic view of AT. In what areas, according to the Baldrige Performance Excellence Model, AT is underperforming? What are potential areas as per the Baldrige Performance Excellence Model where the organization AT has to improve upon? So again, these are perceptions. You have 6 days before exams. You must have read all articles. But these are 11 articles which just create some mindset around the case study we are going through. I hope you will spend time on these 11. I hope you will spend time on the thought process we have developed today from the industry-specific information about Kyland. And you will be prepared for the pre-seen debrief tomorrow, where we'll spend more time about AT, knowing about AT, knowing about the strength and weaknesses of AT, and then ensuring what we read tomorrow is connected with what we did today on day one. So day one and day two will become synchronized, and we'll have a summary at the end of the day. So I hope you all enjoyed it. I hope you will spend at least 1 hour a day on pre-seen, not more than that, because you just need the pre-seen for context. You just need the pre-seen for building some relevance to your answer. But pre-seen is not 100% of the answer. So no question spottings, no thinking about which question will come, what question will come. You just need to absorb pre-seen and just need to relate pre-seen with your answer where possible. I hope you got the examiner criticism very well around pre-seen. I hope you enjoyed that first part of pre-seen in relevance with examiner report at the start of the session, and that was relevant. If you had any confusions and misunderstanding about pre-scenes. Okay. Yes, definitely, Janish. You will get the same pre-seen. The questions could be different in different papers, but the pre-seen will remain same for every student. But yes, because there are 2 to 3 papers for SBL set-ins, so task number 1 for student A could be different. The task number 1 for student B could be different, but the pre-seen information will be the same definitely. Dell, there are 3 divisions, and each division has 18 teams. So 18 teams means 18 clubs. A team is a club, right? Right? Each club has a team. So each division has 18 teams, or each division has 18 clubs, is one of the same thing, right? Okay, I'm just ending the session. If you have any further queries, you can just drop it on the WhatsApp. I'll be posting the resources on the WhatsApp within the next 30 minutes. So you can just download and take a printout. I'll be uploading the session on the portal and the resources on the portal in the next few hours. So I hope you enjoyed it, and see you back tomorrow for the day 2. Just a quick survey. Was the debrief good for all of you? Was it as per your expectation? Did it give you something which you were looking for? Okay, thank you so much, all of you, for taking your time out and participating in this debrief. And yes, if anyone has any confusion about that academy and training facility problem, Nias, you can just drop me a voice clip or a message today on the WhatsApp. I'll just be making that very clear for you. That is there any difference between an academy and a training facility? Because you still seems to be confused on that. So I'll just be interacting with you over the WhatsApp. Wish you all the very best of luck. and ensure you spend a good time on pre-seen, just 1 hour a day, and I'll be back. Thank you. Okay, take care, goodbye, and Allah Hafiz, all of you.